White House making significant moves on three big policy priorities. Earlier, the EPA announcing the repeal of President Obama's signature climate change regulation, the Clean Power Plan. Coal is back, is the way they put it. Hours earlier, the White House laid out their conditions for any deal that would allow illegal immigrant dreamers to stay in the country. And this weekend, new details about the president's outreach to Democratic leader Chuck Schumer, working on a fix to Obamacare. Karl Rove is former senior advisor to President George W. Bush and a Fox News contributor. So, Karl, you can sort of see the way these pieces are all being laid out on the table. And the president would like to see movement on all three of these things. So he's kind of pushing them forward and saying, here's where I stand. What do you think?
I think it's less well organized than you might anticipate. The EPA action has been in the motion for months. It's very difficult to repeal a regulation. You have to do it in a very deliberate fashion. This has actually got two parts to it. One is to withdraw the Clean Power rule, and the second of all is to open up a public comment session on things that could be done reasonably to control pollution at some of these coal-fired plants. But this has been underway for a long period of time. So I'd say that's being done in regular order, if you will. This has been planned. They've been working on it. This simply came to fruition at this time. The immigration thing, I think, is a reaction. President Trump cut the deal on DACA, said, I want to have a deal on DACA in a meeting with Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi. And it started to get a life of its own, and the White House realized we better have a negotiating position here. And so they put out this list of things that they want to see in return for a DACA deal. I think this is their opening bid, but this is reaction. Things started to move. They needed to act, and they did. The impulse is the call to Schumer over the weekend and maybe Nancy Pelosi to say, let's get a deal going on health care reform. I don't think they have a plan on that. It's dangerous to open a negotiation with Chuck Schumer unless you do have a plan. But I think that was just sort of impulse. The president said, why don't I call up Chuck? I had a good visit with he and Nancy in the Oval Office. Let me see if I can get the Democrats to agree.
He's clearly antsy to get that, done. That he doesn't want to leave it off the table. He doesn't like that it's considered a failure, at least at this point. And he wants to go back and try to get the win on that. It's possible they might go back to the Alexander Murray negotiation, which didn't really go anywhere, but it was a bipartisan negotiation. Perhaps they want to reopen that. Do you think there's any hope for that?
Well, there might be, but when you go into something like that, you better have a deliberate plan of what you're going to do, first of all, because otherwise you're going to give over the momentum, the initiative to the people that you're talking to. And second of all, you better make certain that that plan has some support among your allies. Don't surprise your allies by doing something impulsive. So I hope the president and the White House have a plan. I hope they've been discussing that plan with the significant players in the House and in the Senate, because they're going to have to rely upon them to actually do the negotiation, craft the legislation, and vote for it. So, but my sense is there wasn't that much thought on it. This, I think, caught a lot of people in Washington by surprise. I talked to a couple of members of the staffs on the House and Senate side, and their bosses knew nothing about it, and that's a problem. You got to do this thing a little bit more deliberately if you hope to move it forward.
Yeah, they definitely work in different ways. Congress likes to do everything very deliberately, and sometimes they say, oh, we only have 23 days to do that. I don't think we can start that now. We're going to have to wait till next year. And the president likes to, sort of get in there and like a bull in a china shop sometimes, and that doesn't always get well received. But that's just that's the way it is right now. Karl, thank you very much. Go ahead.
One quick note.
Yeah.
They have more than 23 days. That's 23 days of votes on the floor. Mm-hmm. A lot of work in Congress gets done outside of those days.
I think it's 30-something till the end of the year. Yeah. Which is, for normal people, is plenty of time.
It's 90-some-odd days of work till the end of the year, so they could be working on this. They do have only a much smaller number of days to vote on it, though.
Thank you, Karl. Always good to see you, sir.
You bet. Thank you.